welcome back to the Wizard Weekly, where we talk about everything in gaming. So on this rendition of information that you already knew with common sense, but now you finally have actual evidence and backing by people who know what they're talking about and not some random Reddit or Twitter thread on the internet, it's been claimed that Nintendo, they're projected to win the next generation of console wars, whatever that's going to look like in the coming future. Again, for most, that's just me telling you that the sky is blue. There's two things that Nintendo was good at. One is making pointless legal and lawsuit obligations, and two, making an ecosystem of gaming that truly feels like what a console should look like as far as like exclusives and having only one place to play certain exclusive first party games to that side of console. These claims this time comes from the DFC Intelligence, which is the longest running research committee for all of the video game industry market research. They claim that the video game industry will flourish in 2025 and beyond, but one of the big three console makers will struggle. Now, in this current article, they just give it to you raw with no lube, giving you point blank to facts, saying things like the projected gaming community, if overall, is supposed to reach 4 billion players by 2027. Nintendo was the clear winner of the next generation of new consoles, largely due to a combination of earlier availability, I guess you could say, with this new generation, since it's coming in 2025, projectedly against like PS6 or Xbox being later on, whenever the hell that comes out, if it comes out. Obviously, limited competition, and the DFC projects that by 2028, 8 million people are going to have the next Nintendo Switch console, whatever it's going to be. They project that in 3 years that the console is going to be selling 8 million. How many does the Switch have right now again? 146 million units. Now, this is spanning across 6, 7, maybe 8 years now. My math is fucked up. Since the Switch actually came out, so they're projecting that in 3 years, we're going to be getting close to more than half of this for the next Nintendo console. So that's some really... I wouldn't be surprised. But more interestingly, what they bring up here that brings a really huge talking point for the next generation of gaming is that there isn't room for more than 2 major console systems. Sony or Microsoft will struggle mightily in a distant third place, largely depending which of those companies gain early momentum. Now, again, back to the whole common sense thing. We see what Xbox is doing right now, turning into basically just a big ass publisher and striving away from their whole traditional sense of gaming and the fact that they don't really care about their hardware, more as they're investing on, just owning all these games and having just their name tied to their profits. Sony, you could argue, is obviously doing a better job of, keeping that traditional sense of, we have exclusives here. This is how you play it on, our system or whatnot. But them diving into PC and, toying with the whole idea of, coinciding PC release, it's kind of got even PlayStation players just confused on where they're going to go with their whole hardware side of things. But even still, numbers don't lie. The PS5 is currently ahead by 30 million units ahead of the Xbox Series. And based on current sentiments in gaming, it seems that you go to Xbox for the convenience, you go to PlayStation if you would rather play the PlayStation exclusives on the console instead of set a PC if you don't have one, and then Nintendo if you just like Nintendo games, really, since we already established that it sort of feels like an exclusive club, since Nintendo, they've done a good job of remaining a closed ecosystem like Apple products, and the fact that once you would just have one product, more or less your experience is complete until you have another form of that product. An iPhone and some AirPods compared to maybe like Nintendo Switch and the latest remake that they charge you full price for. You don't need it, but goddamn, HD remakes might as well. So whichever console between Sony and Microsoft decides to take the crown in this next generation of gaming after the Switch 2 comes out remains to be seen. But if I were to put my bottom dollar on it, I would obviously say PlayStation, since it's pretty obvious that Xbox, they checked out the console race a long ass time ago. Moving on, Sega, they have had an eventful 2024. Like, they have been killing it as far as all their IPs. I met for Fantasio winning Game of the Year. Well, I don't think it won Game of the Year, but it ran like a big ass award at the Game Awards. Obviously, the Sonic movies and even Sonic Shadow Generations being a killer title. They've been doing some good shit, and I've been loving personally what they've been putting out. But like the old saying goes, when things are going too good, that's kind of when some bullshit's about to stir up in the distance. And unfortunately, I came across this article today talking about Sega considering a Netflix-like game subscription service for the future. And this is a BBC article, so damn. Now, before anyone freaks out or draws any conclusions like I did when I first read the title, nothing is set in stone. And according to Shuji Itsumi, which is Sega's current president, he claims that when talking about current gaming subscription services like obviously Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Plus, he claims that such subscription products are very interesting and that his firm was evaluating some opportunities. Unfortunately, he didn't say that, but you know, I wish they added that shit. We're thinking something and discussing something that we cannot disclose right now, he said. Now, even though BBC broke the news on this, since obviously, you know, Shuji Isumi talked to someone, you know, at their team to get this statement, what they didn't tie into all this is the fact that a couple months ago, Sega, they delisted a bunch of their classic, you know, Genesis titles that were on PC and on consoles that they dubbed the Sega Classics. This got delisted a couple months ago with no real reason. I think I can go out on a limb here and claim that the Chaos Emeralds are finally fucking aligning, because that seemingly just sudden and, you know, vague move on Sega's part to delist these games, they might try to, you know, bring these back to the public in their own form of a new subscription service, which, you know, for Sega fans isn't the worst thing, but for people that might just want to play, I don't know, freaking Echo Jr. for 1% of people, you now might be tied to a subscription service for as long as you decide to, you know, pay into it. Type of already established ones that you might already have, like PlayStation Plus and obviously Xbox Game Pass. Now, of course, some of these titles are available on other subscription services, like I would say here on Nintendo Switch Online subscription, which you can still access these titles for right now. But if Sega decides to revoke their license on these subscriptions and, you know, play hardball and make all of their games only on Sega, whatever the fuck this subscription could be called, that's going to be definitely, you're going to be hearing about that on Twitter for a couple of weeks. But that ends my little rant on that, because I don't want to put too much energy into something that might or might not happen, because Sega, they're already killing it. You know, they have plans to revitalize a bunch of old IPs like Crazy Taxi, which I'm looking forward to. Whether they decide to go to subscription service, it's not out the realm of possibility, but I just think that Sega introducing cool games and even, you know, cooler new IPs like Metaphor Reaper and 𝐂𝐿, them just killing it in that way, I think it's going to be able to keep their name in a good light, rather than, you know, chasing the obvious, you know, monetary way of making money at a subscription, which again, this is a business, so I understand it, but I hope we do not see that shit at all. I really don't. Moving on, Sony being a big business, making big business moves is nothing out of the ordinary, but, you know, their latest move has a lot of people that otherwise, you know, wouldn't give a shit about this type of stuff really just glued to the edge of their monitors, seeing that Sony acquired 12 million new Kadokawa shares, becoming their largest shareholder, holding approximately 10% of their share values. Now, if you remember, Kadokawa is the Japanese conglomerate that is the owner of many different, you know, gaming and media businesses, including, you know, going into anime. Obviously, in their game section, they're the owner of most notably From Software, which is the developer behind all the Dark Souls and Elden Ring titles. Even, you know, back in 2015, 2016, they collaborated with PlayStation, having an exclusive Souls title called Bloodborne, which you see on the screen right now. They have a shit ton of IP that Sony is and have been interested in for a while now. And a couple weeks ago, there was rumors that Sony was trying to acquire Kadokawa and, you know, have control of all of their major businesses and, you know, just really expand their reach, like how Xbox did back in when they did the Activision Blizzard deal. And not long after, Kadokawa, they shut those rumors down, you know, pretty fast, writing a public letter to the, you know, the general gaming community saying that, you know, we're in talks, but nothing is official, so, you know, put the goddamn tinfoil hats down. And then what seems to be a month later, Sony, they released this statement saying how, you know, this is their latest business capital and business alliance with Kadokawa to, you know, increase their overall stay in their company. Looking really hopeful towards a new collaboration between Kadokawa and the business of, you know, Sony. Now, obviously, what we really want to see out of this is a new Bloodborne sequel. This is a title that many diehard PlayStation fans have been, you know, screaming for. You know, the last PlayStation State of Play event, that's all you saw just speculating be announced. Maybe still Sony decides to, you know, potentially buy Kadokawa, even though them buying, you know, this much stake into their businesses and then turning around and buying the business itself would be kind of, you know, counterintuitive. So probably not anytime soon, but still sometime maybe down the line. You never know. And lastly for today, it's been pretty fun seeing people react to their, you know, Steam replays showing, you know, what games they played in 2024, you know, how much time they spent playing these games and shit. But what people are really just surprised about with this stat right here, it shows that only 50% of the current Steam user base are playing games that have came out in 2024, and it's got people concerned that people just aren't buying you know, new games, and that's kind of really the contrary of what's happening, because last year that number was 9% of playtime, and then the year before that in 2022 it was 17%, which was up from this year. So it's kind of going up and down, but that is only the games from 2024. Now, the biggest stat that's being shared by, you know, the entire Steam user base is the fact that 47% of players have been playing games that have been coming out from the last 1 to 7 years. So this can be games from 2023 and from 2023 to, my math is fucked, 2017, my bad. And then the second biggest stat is the fact that 37% of players are playing games from 8 or more years ago. And you know, this whole stat sheet, it kind of makes sense to me, because I don't think it has to do with less players, you know, playing games. It really was just one of the fact that more players are projected to be playing more games as years go on. But I think more and more players are just getting more wise to the fact that, you know, playing a game day one is not what it used to be. Now, granted, you know, playing day one hasn't always been like a perfect experience. Like, there's obviously back in the day, if a game was fucked up, you know, you would have to wait a while, depending on what era that, you know, we're talking from. If it was like an NES era game, you know, that game was just fucked up. It was part of the game. Then as time went on, you had things like recalls where you could bring the disc and, you know, get a new version of the game that isn't broken. Obviously into the era of where we finally got downloadable updates and DLCs to which you could just, you know, fix the game from right at the comfort of wherever you're playing it from. And I just think that, you know, with that convenience now, games are not afraid to ship just in any shape. Like, we just saw how Stalker 2, that game came out, and in their defense, you know, the game was already being delayed a lot, so they were trying to get the game out there, and they felt like if they didn't get it in the time frame that it did, they would just, you know, lose a lot of player faith. But that game was bugged out the waz, and they just released like 2 different patches with over like, what was it, like 100 or 1,000 different bug fixes. It was a lot of shit that they fixed in that game in the first 2 patches in the first month that it came out. So even though playing on day one is obviously not a dead thing, since we see, you know, many new releases getting tens of thousands of players on their first day, at least on PC, it's definitely not the, you know, recommended thing to do if you value your money and you don't want to play a broken game, just in case if the developers decide to, you know, ship a half-ass game and hoping to, you know, release DLC to fix it. And not even just that, you know, most of the gaming landscape nowadays is live service, and the fact that, you know, these games, they attract with their free price and obviously, you know, paid for cosmetics and shit, but that whole service is aimed at keeping you for as long as possible, since, you know, since the game is subscription based, they want to keep, you know, you paying so they get more money as time goes on and have a steady set of revenue. And obviously this 15% reflects the amount of gamers that have been trapped in that genjutsu of playing games from the yesteryears that obviously are getting new content updates but are still live service, so, you know, they're just sticking to that one, you know, subscription and just, you know, going off that. Like, think about the Destiny player base, the, you know, Halo Infinite, freaking Fortnite. Like, these communities are really large players, and for some, these are the only games that they play at all, you know, because they're free and, you know, you only have to pay for what you want to, you know, look cool in the game. So that obviously makes up these, you know, 47 and 37% of gamers. And then lastly, you know, speaking for the PC gaming community specifically, because, you know, I'm not into the whole, at least this side on consoles and whatnot, but you know, being on PC, I don't doubt a lot of people are paying for these prices right now when they're just, you know, downloading these games through other means. So that kind of also plays a factor into this 15%. And that's all I got for today, man. If you enjoyed liking the video, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.